Hey guys, we're here at Eurobike 2024 and we're in the Tern booth with the gold winning Tern Orox. Really awesome bike. Here was Steve from Tern North America. We're really excited just to kind of learn more about these different bikes and tell folks at home what's going on here.
The Orox came out a couple months ago. As you said, it won the gold award 2 nights ago here, which is very prestigious at this event. They only give out
There's a lot of bikes here.
Yeah,
the idea that like, okay, this one's got it. Yeah, that's a big deal. Yeah.
So the Orox it's an adventure cargo bike. If you think, okay, we're famous for our cargo bikes in town, we wanted folks who wanted to go out of town to be able to get all the benefits of having their cargo with them. With a 480-pound payload capacity, dual battery ready, so you got plenty of range. Obviously, it's set up for all terrain and carrying stuff. So lots of different configurations, but basically you'll be able to take all the gear you want and go 100 miles out into the wilderness and camp or hunt or do whatever you want to do.
Go wherever you want.
That's right.
And kind of whenever you want too.
And take whatever you want.
Right.
Our lead designers are in Finland. They're year-round athletes and adventurers, so they're like, okay, those pavement bikes are great, but now we want something that we can take into the woods.
Yeah, I foresee this being really big in the US particularly. I mean, we have a lot of these natural surface trails, and although, many of your bikes work well on that as well, but like having something that's like even more capable. So this has single battery, but available with 2 batteries.
Yeah, you can get it either way. That's a B-roll right there. There's an entire back. Yeah, so you can order it either way. Bag in the middle is standard equipment, so there is another battery slot in there. In the winter, good to keep your battery, a little bit warmer. So that's built in and ready to go. And this is the bike's stock configuration right here. So the rear rack is on board, obviously the fenders and mud guards. This is the 27.5 setup. In the US, we bring it in with standard and 27.5 wheels, but we also bring rims or wheel sets depending on which model. So when we get around there, we'll see the 29 version. You can end up with that in the US as well.
Yeah, and I know a lot of folks on that kind of more performance riding, they might like to switch kind of things back and forth. So this is the derailleur version, 12-speed derailleur.
This is the S12. It comes in 2 colors, and this is the only bike from Tern that comes in 2 sizes. 2 sizes fit most now.
Right, and that's the thing, I guess, again, in that similar vein, like, riding a little bit more performance and that sort of thing, like having those different sizes are beneficial.
Yep.
I know the kind of standard stem and handlebars and stuff like that, so I guess if folks wanted to kind of swap those out or do a different configuration, but from my perspective, is the type of parts that I would want to have on it.
All the parts have to pass all the tests at the max weight. So we've done a lot of vetting on these parts to make sure that they're up to the task.
That's an important thing to note. Just because something fits doesn't mean that it's actually like the right part for the bike. The weight and some of the stresses and these different things, this bike is built for that. So keeping that in mind, I think is really important to consider on this bike or really any bike.
People ask, why doesn't it have a suspension fork? The answer is none would pass our test. We call this a cargo bike. So this has to pass the cargo bike test. That's a lot different than the mountain bike test. More robust in some areas. And of course, with that tire volume, you can air down.
It really needs a suspension fork at that point. This one, R14, I guess you can gather that it's the roll-off version.
Yep. Bag's open so you can see in there. There's a little bit of room in addition to even if the other battery's in there, so you can stuff a jacket or some gloves.
But I appreciate the idea too that like this material also helps like protect from the wind and everything like that, keep the battery range better, especially considering a lot of folks might use it in the winter time. And it's great to see it fully outfitted with these rack parts and everything like that. This is Tern parts.
Yeah, so this one is equipped with our front rack, so that's an additional option. Obviously, you can see it's ready for pannier setup. It's also ready for something to be put on the top. And then the rear rack is standard, as we saw up there, but this one fits the clubhouse. So that's the other nice thing is we have all these accessories in our ecosystem. This fits all the full-size GSD accessories. This is equipped with our new super oversized pannier, so this one's even bigger than a GSD pannier. So we wanted to leverage that length.
I don't know about you guys, but like I just see this thing and I'm like inspired to like want to go on an adventure. I'm thinking about like my daughter and like taking her into the woods and like it's
grab a tent, throw it on there.
Pretty cool. I wouldn't consider myself any sort of like bike packer or anything like that. And sometimes I see them like, oh yeah, it looks cool, but like the idea of like doing this and being able to carry my daughter with me, that's pretty tremendous. I'm sure a lot of folks kind of think that, and not necessarily to say that you got to do it with a kid, but it's just like the idea that you can is kind of special and unique, really.
Yeah. And this is a good shot of the gates plus roll off on this one, which is nice.
You know, the idea of you're riding in the wintertime and stuff like that, and like wanting to do less maintenance and just kind of set it and forget it in a lot in it kind of does that pretty well.
Yep.
So you got some more over here that kind of shows some of the different pieces.
You. This one is configured with the 29-inch wheel, so here in Europe, the distributors are going to roll more on the larger wheels. But this is a good shot of that new stow deck. So this stow deck locks in different positions.
Oh, that's great.
So it's out of the way, and then multiple places, depending on what you're lashing down to the bike and that sort of thing. Also supports the pannier if it's really loaded down, which is nice. But it makes for a great footrest, as you can see on this one, equipped with the clubhouse. You also see things like braze-ons for water bottles everywhere on this bike. You know,
all sorts of attachment
between the clubhouse and the front rack.
These pads are a little bit different on here.
Lots and lots of people use the clubhouse with baby seats. We were selling it with the pad set too, and people were like, I lost my pad set, you set it up with the baby seat and it doesn't work out. So now we're selling that separately. So it's easier to install and it's more modular. So everyone can customize it. So and then you can see the large wheel guard too.
And this is a really important detail, often underestimated. Safety is so critical.
No bike should have a passenger on the back if they're not in a baby seat with the feet locked in without a protection here. It might be this, it might be the panniers, because that does the job too.
Sure.
But everything should be covered for sure, you're right.
Yeah, and here you can see it kind of folded up with the bag.
Right.
So if you need to get in some of those more narrow spaces.
This bike does stand up vertically like ours.
Oh, right.
It's a bigger bike, so it's heavier to get up there, but it does do that, so it's still handy in the garage or wherever you're putting it.
Somebody's putting this in the back of a vehicle or something like that, the idea that you can really shrink it down. Maybe you're putting a couple of these in the back of a pickup or who knows what, and we got a nice little
got our snow.
Snow in July.
This is an homage to our Finnish friends.
Awesome.
Yep. This bike has the studded tires on it.
This is a fairly standard tire size, so there's kind of a lot of different options if folks want to go with that, and set up with the lights and everything else. And
full integrated lights like we have on most of the bikes these days, and they're bright, suitable for legitimate off-roading at night.
You have another new model.
We do have another new model. The Quickhaul Long we just announced last week. This is a GSD sized bike that has the GSD length rear end and GSD carrying capacity. So this is a 1+2. So we call rider 1 and then we say +2. So that's 2 children or 1 adult. You also see all of the GSD accessories fitting on there because it's the same length. This is the same stow deck that we just looked at on the Orox. So it's got that adjusting multiple things. And then we have a neat little storage bag there because we ended up with some space when we made the longer bike. So that's pretty cool. You can put your gloves or your Abus lock extension chain.
That's
would
really
fit in
convenient.
there.
Yeah, and you have the lock up here if you wanted to throw the chain in here or whatever. You you have that.
And then we've got our combo mount on the front, so all the front accessories fit with this bike as well. While we do not have our Andro stem that you see on the other one, you still have the speed lifter, so you still get plenty of adjustment for one size fits most for the 2 partners who are different size, because of course this bike is designed to be shared in the family.
And this comes in at a lower price point than some of the other models that can carry 2.
So in the US we're at $37.99 with 500 watt-hour battery.
That's great.
And this bike is equipped with the Bosch cargo motor. That's a really strong value.
Very capable and one of the least expensive with that kind of setup, that capability. So that's great. One of the really great things about Tern overall is just all the accessories and the thoughtfulness and the intent behind them and everything like that. And it's like, yeah, sure, you could probably find a way to attach a trailer just like on the rack there, but it's like actually really extend it behind it, and make sure it's got the full range and everything else. And so the devil's in the details, as they say. And
no need to DIY on this because we make the small dog carrier thing. But people do say, I want to take my bigger dog. How do I hook up a trailer? How do I tow my kid's bike home when they get tired and they get in the clubhouse? So we've got that figured out.
And all the clubhouse and all the other sort of parts will kind of fit on here as well. We have another one a little bit more outfitted here.
Double baby seats. Just full disclosure, this color is not coming to the U.S.
So who is responsible for picking the colors in the U.S.?
I am responsible for picking the colors. So I do ask people their opinion, but we went with red and black. So we got the black there, the red is over there.
So if you got any favorites, you know,
That's
for him
right.
to consider in the future, we did kind of pick the colors for next year already, but like let Steve know. You could put them in the comments. It's a good thing to
if you've ever ended up on the global site, you might have fallen in love with a color from another country, but we can't bring them all.
But you know, that's one thing that I really respect about Tern is like you guys really listen to the riders, and you guys all ride yourself, guys and girls, right? Ride all yourself, and like I think that that's a really big thing, and I think that it shows in the end results of the product. And even like, you know, some of the online groups, Tern is active in it, and I think that that's a really good thing to do, and it's really, I really respect that, and I'm sure the riders really appreciate that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you can see that in the product. I mean, after launching the category with the GSD1 in 2017, we learned so much from those forums and from our dealers and from using the bike in our real life, and like we incorporated pretty much all of that stuff in GSD2. And we continue to learn. That's what you see here on this stuff.
You got a bunch of other models. I mean, and as you're talking about, the GSD is kind of really one of the things that was a dramatic change for Tern, introducing this as historically primarily being a folding bike company.
That's right.
I've always said that you guys kind of had the best ingredients to do well in this space because it kind of takes a lot of ingenuity to build an electric bike and to do it in this kind of special way. And folding bikes are really difficult to make well. That's like the foundational building blocks of like the DNA of
It's true.
Tern.
I mean, we're 20-inch wheel experts since the minute we started with just folding bikes 13 years ago. They've always been considered the ones that rode the best. So like some fold smaller and some cost less, but none of them ride any better. You know, the GSD was the only bike of its kind from a form factor and carrying capacity. So we leveraged our 20-inch wheel expertise, we leveraged our handle post expertise, that sort of thing. And then it grew from there with all that input.
We have the NBD over here. This is actually the bike that my wife rides. For her, she's not any sort of like bike enthusiast. She's a more petite woman and just very accessible, very easy for her to get on and off of it. She's shorter, so like having that really low saddle height option is really great.
The NBD grew out of a bunch of different stuff. One thing that we learned was that people were buying Vectrons because it was easy to get on and off, right?
Yeah.
But they never folded it. So it's like, well, if you don't need all the hinges and stuff, then how can we optimize it even better? So when you take out the hinge, you can make the standover even lower, which makes it even easier to get on. If you have a mobility issue or if you're shorter in stature, super easy to board this bike and get ready to go. Your feet can usually touch the ground depending on your body's make. You got a nice upright seating position, but what's really unique about this bike is how well it fits regular sized people too. So you'd look at it and you go, it's gonna fit small people, great. You know, I'm not tall, but I love riding it. And then we have guys on our product team that are 6'4" and they ride it around all the time. So
that's one of the elements too, having that like slightly slack seat tube that kind of gives you a little bit. That's like as you go up, you go back a little bit.
You can see the cranks are in front of the seat tube more than a regular bike, so that gives you that ability to extend your legs, still get to the ground, have a nice position. Two versions of this bike too. So you've got Gates belt on the S5 with the Shimano 5-speed, electric specific hub.
So you have this 5-speed and then you have the 8-speed with the chain. And a lot of folks will say like, well, 8 is clearly better, right? This kind of gets back to like designing a bike the way that it's intended, making sure parts are compatible. Some folks might put an 8-speed hub on a more powerful motor, but the reality is they're not actually supposed to work together. But this one's specifically designed for a more powerful motor. And although it's 5-speed, a little less speeds, there's more space in between these gears, and it's really built to handle that more power. So you get a little bit more power with the 5-speed and a belt drive, and then slightly less power, but still plenty for most on the 8-speed.
And those bigger steps between gears for these riders are actually nice, because I'm not, I got to fumble every two.
I don't have to shift all the time,
2
right?
miles an hour, right? You just go for it. So
that's a good point. Actually, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, even think about somebody might have like arthritis or something like that. They want to be shifting all the time. Just like, okay, occasionally, you know, it's like,
and you can see one thing that's nice about this bike too is the cafe lock. So we use cafe locks on a lot of these. This lock, it's also called a ring lock, so it goes through the spokes. but it also has a chain extension so you can wrap it around a pole. You can see how high it is. So you're not, the person who's riding this bike doesn't have to bend over down here to fumble with where the lock is. So little things like that, we try to pay attention to how the bike's actually going to get used.
The weight is rated for a child seat as well?
Yeah, it is.
On here, and that's another big deal. It's like a lot of times you have these racks that are rated for 40 pounds, but you have child seat that's rated for 40 plus pounds, 45 pounds, and the child seat itself weighs 10 pounds. So it's really not compatible with a lot of bikes sometimes. So appreciate that those little details. Like, yeah, you got to make that rack a little bit more robust, but to handle it.
And remember too, having a child seat on a 20-inch wheel bike is way nicer to ride.
Lower center of gravity.
Yeah,
so for sure.
Yeah,
well, you talked about the bikes kind of standing up, and you got one over here.
We call this a flat fold position, storage position. So put the seat post down, you use our Andros folding, that makes it vertical, and then stand it up. So, you know, this isn't really any bigger than a average sized person. Yeah. This will fit behind a door in an apartment. So, you know, my sister lived in New York forever, and I could take a cargo bike in the small elevator and then get it in the door and stand it up behind the front door in a small apartment in New York.
Many other scenarios where folks are using these in the back of a vehicle, you know, you have a lot more flexibility. Whether you're a family, you might have a minivan and you want to put it in between the seats in the minivan.
Still use the seats.
You can still use the seats. You have a lot of flexibility. Even throw it in a closet, you know, you do all sorts of things with it.
And then, you know, like I store mine in the garage. 2 or 3 bikes in the garage take up the same space as one regular bike. But even if you have an SUV, a full-size wheel regular bike, not a cargo bike, you know, the seats sit in the roof, and so you go seat down, handle post down, boom, right in there.
So this is the GSD, where it all started in the electric space with you guys.
So GSD is still the flagship. So you've got all the standard, you know, the dual battery setup, extension seat post, suspension fork, upgraded lighting, you know, everything comes standard, most of the bells and whistles ready to go. And then of course this one's configured with the transporter rack on the front, storm box and storm shield in the back.
More folks are looking at the Quickhaul along and looking at this and say like, okay, what should I choose?
The bike is, it's GSD length and it's GSD capable. So a lot of people are going, hey, can I do this with it? Can I do that with it? Can I add a second battery? Can I? Well, we have that bike. It's the GSD, right? So it's got the folding handle post. It's got the dual battery setup. It's got the suspension fork. Many of them come with suspension seat posts. It's got the upgraded lighting. So if you want that bike, we've got it. Sometimes people don't know that they want all that stuff because they haven't ridden one much yet. And some don't need that stuff. Dual battery sounds great, but the vast majority of GSDs we sell leave with a single battery. Now later they might add a second, and that's a nice feature. But there's pretty substantial range with a single battery. That's why we put the 500 on there. Of course there are differences, but they're substantial. But when you figure it out, you go, oh, well, now I can do this. If I don't need all that, or if I don't want to spend that much money, you got a high quality alternative from us that uses all of our accessories, because that's the key, right?
Yeah. And I guess the important thing to note on the battery front is you can always carry an extra one with you if you want. You know, the dual battery gives you the ability that there's drawing from both of them, and it's a kind of whole, you know, refined system. But I appreciate you giving that breakdown, because as I said, I think I'm already started to see folks kind of asking those questions. I'm sure it's going to come up a lot. The original Quickhaul.
Yeah, exactly. So the original Quickhaul is the most affordable entry at $24.99. You can see this is HSD length, so this has HSD capabilities. So the Clubhouse Mini is on there. But like the Long, we went to the speed lifter for the front stem instead of the Andros, because we wanted a bike that was more affordable. To get a Bosch bike from us with our testing and our capabilities at $24.99 is a pretty strong package. Front end of the Long does look like a Quickhaul, but the geometry on the Long is GSD. So the angles are a little bit different. The bike's longer, it's carrying more, so it rides a little bit better.
It's a little bit more sporty.
It is, it's sporty, it's fun. This is a fun bike to ride.
Yeah.
HSD Gen 2, you know, the HSD is that mid-range platform, the 1+1, but a premium level. So it's a lot of the same differences that we talked about between GSD and Quickhaul Long. got the suspension fork, you got the Andro stem, you got the upgraded lighting, premium parts level. Like this is the 5-speed internal belt drive version. If you know you want all the features right away, then boom, we've got that bike too.
One of the great things about this is it can carry, what, 187 pounds on the rear rack, so like capable of carrying a small adult even if you want. Although most of these bikes have racks on them and everything like that, many people buy them not even carrying kids or adults or whatever, but just to have that capability. And it's just a good, solid, compact bike. It's also just like the flexibility between riders, you know? You can have one rider that's 6'5" and one rider that's 5 foot, and they can fit both of them.
Yeah, safely.
Yeah.
Because that's why bikes are different size. It's for safety ultimately.
Right.
And ride, of course. But yeah, so to be able to fit all those riders, I mean, to be able to share a bike, people come into town, they go, hey, you got a bike I can ride? Doesn't matter how tall they are.
Yeah.
You know, and they get a great, safe ride. And then of course, HSD2 has the charging port up here now.
Yeah.
So that's
super
really
nice.
You're not
for sure.
bending over looking for it.
Loads of different accessories. It's kind of difficult to show them all.
We've got captain chairs with footrests on this bike. Of course, there's panniers that are made just for this size. Clubhouse Mini, like dog carrier.
This has that chain lock that you were talking about before.
That's the
kind of plugs in, and most of the bikes have that ability to add that feature. You even have that quick release front rack. So the idea, if you wanted to kind of fold the bike up and put it into a vehicle or store it or whatever else, you can remove that rack pretty quickly. Which
exactly.
Is
so this is
nice.
The hauler rack. The quick release setup is for that. If you want to, you could change your configuration. You can remove it if you're traveling, you know, moving it around like you said. So.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing us through everything. Hopefully you guys enjoy this and appreciate some of these new updates. Let us know what you think. Let Steve know about, you know, what colors you want to see in the future.
That's right. That's right.
And yeah, thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks.
All right.